Leverage was a TV show that aired from December 2008 to December 2012 on TNT. It's a heist show that could be compared to The Italian Job or Ocean's 11. Many of the show's elements are a bit exaggerated for either entertainment or comedic purposes, so I wouldn't recommend trying out one of their cons. I wouldn't recommend trying them out anyway, because it's not exactly legal. I recently performed the piece by Rimsky-Korsokov, Scheherazade, and it reminded me of this episode of Leverage. As a full-time musician, I thought I'd take a look at the accuracy of the episode. I won't go through the episode scene by scene, but just taking a look at the mentions of the music. The hacker of the group, Hardison, has to perform the violin to distract the mark while the others pull off the heist.
You're going to host a concert in his honor in your concert hall, and Temmie will be the star.
Sophie returns from picking out the music and is very excited.
I just helped Moto pick out the music for the concert. Look what it is.
What is it?
It's Scheherazade by Korsakov. It's based on a story from the Arabian Nights about a sultan who marries a new bride every night and has her killed by morning until Scheherazade. You see, every night she tells him a story with such a suspenseful cliffhanger that he daren't execute her for fear that he'll never know the ending. She told her stories for 1,001 nights until the sultan fell deeply, deeply in love with her.
The synopsis of the Arabian Nights is correct, but did you listen to the music? That's Scheherazade snuck in there.
Let me tell you what I know about some Scheherazade, okay? It ends with one of the most difficult violin solos, my solo.
But does it actually end with the most difficult violin solo? Difficulty can be different from person to person, but considering he hasn't played in over 10 years, wouldn't this be difficult? That was from less than a minute into the first movement of Scheherazade. There are several other violin cadenzas and solos throughout the piece as well. Later in the episode, we get a good look at the first page, and the second line clearly has solo written there. As a quick aside, it is worth noting that the premise of this episode was written with only the last 7 minutes of the piece in mind, so all of these solos from earlier on really don't matter. On the commentary track for the episode, it is stated that other options were considered, although they were never named. At the first rehearsal, that Hardison had no time to prepare for and quickly gets out of, the story of the piece is repeated by the conductor, but again makes mention of a solo at the end, but nowhere else.
You play the solo.
Okay.
All right, let us rehearse. Everyone, please. Let us take it from the beginning. And
Wait. Buzzy with this.
And even though it's very short, it's clearly the fourth movement here. Hardison gets out of the rehearsal and the conductor says, "See you at the concert." So this concert was put together in less than 2 days and is only having one rehearsal? Interesting. Not that this couldn't be done, but I'd be shocked if this piece was put together in one rehearsal. Then again, they are seemingly only looking at the last movement, so it's a short 12-minute concert instead of about 45. We find out that we need 7 minutes to do the heist, so Nate points to the music and dictates the plan. Elliot takes out the guard during the third movement, you can barely see in the middle of the left page. And then he talks about needing their own conductor, but really Nate just times the performance with a reference recording and gets timing off of that. Slightly misleading there. We get a nice wide shot of the hall and the orchestra, and this is an interesting setup. I haven't seen anything like this before, but I guess it could work. The stage is quite small and can't actually hold all of the musicians needed. From what it looks like, there are 10 first violins, 8 seconds, 3 violas, 5 celli, 2 bass, 2 percussion, 2 horn, 2 trumpets, 2 trombones, 1 tuba, and a small one at that, 1 flute, 1 oboe, 1 bassoon, and 2 percussionists. In a later scene, you can see a single clarinet as well. There should be 4 horns, 2 trumpets, 3 bones, 1 tuba, 2 flutes, a piccolo, 2 clarinets, 2 oboes, and 2 bassoons. The reason for this instrumentation is they actually used a real orchestra from the area, so this has just happened to be the instrumentation that they had, so it's understandable why they didn't have the actual instrumentation required. While setting up for the last 7 minutes, we get a very blurry look at the music, which is the violin 1 part on the second movement. The concert, quote, starts, and they are indeed only playing the 4th movement. Remember earlier when I said there were other solos? Well, they purposely left off right here, actually. Right when the camera cuts away, it's a violin solo. When we come back to the orchestra after a short scene, they are later on in the 4th movement, but only by a little bit, skipping the violin solo I just mentioned, and the first minute or so, the faster tempo. We see Nate still looking at the second movement for some reason. He starts the timer for 7 minutes, but that's not even to the end of the piece actually, it's closer to the violin solo at the end instead. In a shot of Nate looking at the violin part again, he has moved on to the 3rd movement. I should mention too that the score on the computer is not what the orchestra is playing. I'm not entirely sure what it is. It's not from the full score or the violin parts from Scheherazade. Nate and the conductor turn pages at the same time, and Nate is looking at the 3rd movement still. And when Nate mentions a faster tempo, it's not actually faster.
It's a faster tempo. I'm moving up the timetable. You guys have 4.5 minutes.
Maybe just different from the reference recording he's using, perhaps? I now need to give a shout out to Aldous Hodge, the actor who plays Hardison, who actually does play the violin. So in this scene, to my eyes, as a horn player, aside from a small editing timing issue, it looks pretty accurate. On the commentary track, he does mention that he did take a few lessons on this to make it look more accurate. We get to see that the screen and program again that Nate is using, and we see that it definitely wasn't the music that was playing because it just randomly ends. While there were many different changes made about the portrayal of the music, it wasn't anything different or more far-fetched than anything else in the show. It doesn't actually take much of anything away from the piece either. It is a wonderful and very challenging work, and I highly recommend going to a performance of it if you have the chance. So that's my look into the Scheherazade Job episode of Leverage. What other TV shows or movies have an orchestral element to them that I should take a look at next? But until then, subscribe for more of these types of videos and horn ensemble recordings, and I'll see you then.